In a galaxy ruled by ancient alliances and fragile peace, no one feared the newcomers from Earth until they saw what we could do. Behind every human smile was a storm waiting to rise, a predator cloaked in diplomacy. When threats came, we didn't just defend, we hunted. This is the story of how the galaxy welcomed us with open arms, and only later realized we had claws. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. Your support means the universe to us. Now let's jump into the story. Ambassador Rayhan Malik adjusted the cuffs of his tailored jacket and exhaled slowly. Before him stood the grand chamber of the Galactic Coalition, its entrance carved from obsidian and crystal, mined from distant moons. Beyond that doorway, over 200 alien species waited, curious, watchful, and uncertain. Earth had finally been invited to join the stars, but not everyone welcomed them with open arms. Some smiled politely. Others prepared for the unknown. Behind Rayhan stood Dr. Talia Minoan, Earth's chief advisor on alien psychology and culture. Quiet, sharp-eyed, and endlessly observant, she carried a slim tablet and a calm demeanor. "Are you ready?" she asked. Gently, though she already knew the answer. Rayhan gave a soft laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. As ready as a man can be when stepping into a room full of beings who might see him as either a friend or a future problem, the chamber doors slid open silently. Inside, tiered rows of seats rose into a dome-like ceiling glittering with projected stars. Representatives of the coalition filled the space, some seated in pressurized pods, others in floating spheres or even on vertical platforms suited to aquatic life forms. Each species had evolved in wildly different environments, yet they all turned as one to face the human delegation. Rayhan walked forward at a careful pace, measured, deliberate, respectful. He had practiced this walk countless times. Not too fast to appear aggressive, not too slow to seem uncertain. Just the confident stride of a new neighbor hoping to be welcomed. Not feared. At the center of the chamber, a tall, translucent being with shimmering scales and 6 thin arms raised a hand. "Ambassador Rayhan Malik of Earth," the creature said in smooth galactic common. "You may speak." Rayhan stepped onto the central platform, which lifted slightly so all could see him clearly. A beam of light illuminated him from above. He looked calm. Inside, his heart beat steady, and his mind worked faster than ever, calculating risks, observing movement, scanning reactions. "Honored members of the Galactic Coalition," Rayhan began, his voice clear, confident, and warm. "Earth is grateful to stand before you today. We come in peace, hoping for cooperation and shared growth." He paused as the translator systems carried his message across dozens of languages, tones, and thought patterns. Some species blinked in what passed for approval. Others tilted heads or shifted colors in signs of interest. In the shadows near the door, Talia watched carefully, noting every twitch, every glow, every flicker of alien emotion. She wasn't just observing reactions, she was documenting fears. Rayhan continued, offering soft words about Earth's culture, the beauty of its oceans and mountains, the diversity of its people, and their deep curiosity about the universe. He made no mention of Earth's turbulent past, no wars, no weapons, no death worlds. That story wasn't needed here, not yet. High above the planet, hidden just beyond sensor range, Earth's diplomatic vessel, the End's horizon orbited in silence. It appeared modest by coalition standards, even outdated. But beneath the polished HULL were systems Earth had developed in secret. Technologies reverse-engineered from wrecked alien crafts that had fallen to Earth long ago. Captain Sarah Leon stood on the bridge, watching the feed from Rayhan's podium. "So far, so good," she muttered. Back in the chamber, Rayhan was nearing the end of his speech. We have much to learn, he said sincerely, and perhaps in time much to offer. We come not to challenge, but to understand. A ripple passed through the crowd. A jellyfish-like delegate pulsed with a color indicating curiosity. A reptilian being clicked its claws gently, a respectful gesture among its kind. A few remained still, their expressions unreadable. Once the address ended, there was no applause. But several counselors rose and approached. They introduced themselves politely, asked questions about Earth's climate, its people, its arts. A lean insectoid being named Helver tilted its head at Rayon. Your world's gravity and ecosystem suggest a very dangerous environment, it said. And yet you speak with such gentleness. Why? Rehan smiled with ease. Because surviving difficulty teaches the value of peace. What he didn't say, what no one said, was that Earth was classified, by galactic standards, as a high risk. Survival world, violent storms, deadly predators. Gravity heavier than most civilized planets. Rehan had trained as a survival officer before he ever became a diplomat. Talia had written her doctoral thesis on predator-prey behavior across sentient species. Their team was not just diplomatic, it was prepared. Later, as Rehan and Talia returned to their temporary quarters, she activated a signal jammer and dropped. Her formal tone. Initial thoughts? She asked. They're curious, Rehan replied, removing his jacket. They don't understand us yet, and they don't fear us. That's good. But dangerous, she added. They evolved from species that fled from predators. They see friendliness and assume harmlessness. Rehan walked to the window, looking out at the alien city that now housed Earth's embassy. Glowing towers, quiet airships, and streets of soft light stretched into the horizon. Let them believe we are only diplomats, he said quietly, until the moment it becomes necessary to be more. Neither spoke for a while. Outside, the stars burned brightly, unaware of the game that had just begun. Earth had entered the galactic stage wearing a peaceful face, but it was a face that could change if the need ever came. For now, they smiled gently and waited. *A. Week after Earth's formal introduction to the Galactic Coalition, whispers began to spread. They were soft at first, mere curiosities floating through diplomatic corridors and private councils. But like all whispers in powerful halls, they began to take shape. Stories about human adaptability, rumors about survival instincts, questions about what lay beneath Earth's calm words and peaceful handshake. Captain Naima Idris stood on the deck of the En's Valor, one of Earth's stealth-class vessels in orbit above the small mining colony of Theron 5. The colony was quiet, barely a year old, mostly automated. It held rich deposits of a rare fuel used in faster-than-light engines, something both pirates and governments valued. And that made it a tempting target. The alert came just before dawn. 2 unidentified ships jumped into the system unregistered fast, and clearly not Coalition approved. They made no demands. They simply attacked. Within moments, defense drones were wiped out, a shuttle was destroyed, and 3 colonists were dead. Coalition protocol advised diplomatic mediation. Requests for assistance would usually go to the nearest local fleet for a measured response. But Earth had other plans. Naima didn't hesitate. Battle stations, she ordered. Maintain stealth. No warnings, no delays. Her officers moved. Quickly, their faces calm, eyes focused. These were not traditional soldiers. Most had served in elite Earth operations before being recruited for diplomatic defense missions. Their uniforms bore no visible weapons. Their ships looked more like research craft than war machines. But everything was designed that way, an illusion of fragility masking strength. From a coalition, observation ship several thousand kilometers away, Commander Fenric Vale watched with interest. His species, the Razari, had evolved from four-legged runners. They had an eye for movement and speed. Fenric had been assigned to monitor human behavior and report back to the military advisory council. What he saw confused him. The Valor shifted in space like a predator circling its prey. It didn't fire from afar, as most ships would. Instead, it closed in with sharp, precise movement turning, just enough to confuse the targeting systems of the pirate vessels. Then, without warning, it released a volley of pulse weapons that disabled one ship's engines and cracked the shields of the other. Fenric leaned forward. That was not standard coalition maneuvering, he muttered to himself. That was something else. On the Valor, Naima gave her next command. Boarding units ready? Shuttles prepped. Her second-in-command replied. Lieutenant, Rohan's team is green to go. Small, nearly invisible pods launched from hidden ports on the ship's underside. These were Earth's diplomatic combat team soldiers, trained not just to fight, but to gather information, subdue with minimal force, and extract data without leaving a mess behind. Lieutenant Rohan, tall and calm, led his team aboard the disabled pirate vessel. Their suits looked ceremonial, decorative even, but were built with reactive armor and full environmental controls. They moved quickly through the ship, stunning pirates who tried to resist, subduing others in near silence. They didn't shout. They didn't panic. They didn't hesitate. Back in the chamber halls of the coalition capital, word of the encounter spread within hours. A full military engagement by a human ship. No formal request. No diplomatic delay. Just swift action and victory. Xenu, a young alien researcher from the aquatic Thari species, received the incident report with wide eyes. He had been studying human physiology for weeks, intrigued by early reports of their endurance and adaptability. But this was something different. Something deeper. He asked for access to medical scans of the wounded humans recovered from the boarding teams. Surprisingly, 2 of them had been injured during the Operation 1 with a deep burn wound, the other with a fractured shoulder. Yet both had continued fighting, completing the mission without showing any signs of pain. They had refused evacuation until the pirates were fully subdued. Xenu stared at the data. They kept moving, he said softly. Even injured, even outnumbered. Commander Fenric submitted his report that evening. He titled it, Unconventional Engagement Patterns of Human Defense Units. In it, he described how the human ship did not behave like a military craft. It behaved like a hunter. Talia Manon, watching events unfold from Earth's embassy, sent a quiet message to Rehan Malik. The whispers are no longer whispers. They're starting to ask questions. Rehan responded simply. Then it's time to control the answers. 3 days later, Earth issued a carefully worded statement to the Coalition Council. It expressed regret for the loss of life. It explained that the response had been purely defensive, aimed at protecting civilian lives. It stressed Earth's commitment to peace. The statement was calm, professional, reassuring, but it couldn't erase the footage already circulating clips of the Valor's approach, the clean, coordinated boarding. The pirate vessels, completely subdued without a single fatality. Aliens from across the council watched the recordings again and again, and what they saw wasn't rage. It wasn't chaos. It was control, precision, patience. They were used to warriors who fought with fire and noise. But these humans, they fought like they'd been doing it for longer than anyone else. And they smiled while doing it. The whispers grew louder. What kind of species hides a sword behind a handshake? No one had answers yet, but many now had a reason to wonder. Asterisk Rina Sato stood before a tall window in the Earth Embassy, watching the shifting light of the twin suns over the cityscape below. This alien capital, once strange and overwhelming, had started to feel familiar. Buildings made of transparent stone and floating transit lines curved through the sky like brushstrokes. But the view wasn't what held Rena's attention. It was the way people looked at her, now different than before. There was interest still, but also caution. Where there had once been eager curiosity about Earth, now there was hesitation. And sometimes fear. Since the incident at Theron 5, Earth's place in the coalition had changed. Human diplomats had resolved 3 major disputes between member species. Their strategies were praised, their results celebrated. But behind closed doors, the Council had started to whisper again. How could such a young species, so new to galactic society, handle centuries-old conflicts with such ease? How had they ended long-standing wars with only a few weeks of talks? Rena had an answer, but it wasn't one she could share. Earth's diplomats were trained differently. They studied languages, yes. Cultures, yes. But they also trained in battlefield psychology, in pressure tactics, and in analyzing weakness the way a hawk studies a field. Earth's diplomatic corps was not just a team of speakers and thinkers. It was a carefully chosen blend of minds who understood both peace and power. That balance was now drawing attention. Counselor Belther, a respected leader from a gentle species known for their wisdom, had requested a meeting with Rena. He arrived precisely on time, walking slowly with his long cloak trailing behind him. His large eyes, usually warm and curious, now studied her with something cooler concern, perhaps, or suspicion. "Ambassador Sato," he said, sitting across from her in the open meeting room. "There is admiration for your people's success. But there are also questions." Rena smiled politely. "I understand, and I'll do my best to answer them." Belther nodded once. "There are stories circulating among the scientific divisions. Observations about your endurance, your ability to resist injury, your aggressive problem-solving methods, even your diets. Is it true your people can digest things that are poisonous to others?" Rena kept her expression steady. "Earth is a diverse world, harsh in many places. Humans evolved to adapt. We learn to survive." Belther folded his hands together. "Yes, that is what many are beginning to notice. You survive. You endure. You fight when others would flee." Across the city, Lena Voss stood at the entrance to the Earth Cultural Pavilion, where a group of alien scholars had gathered for an educational exchange. Inside, holographic galleries displayed images of Earth. Forests, oceans, music festivals, paintings, and ancient ruins. It was meant to show the coalition that humans were more than fighters, that they had beauty and complexity. Lena welcomed the group with warmth. "Today," she said, "we'll explore human recreation, how we find joy in physical activity." She explained dancing, team sports, hiking, and swimming. The aliens listened with polite interest. Then she mentioned running. "Running?" asked a reptilian scholar, confused. "To escape predators?" "No," Lena said. "For fun. Some humans run long distances just for personal challenge or relaxation." The room fell silent. Several delegates exchanged uncertain glances. "You chase ... nothing?" asked another, blinking slowly. "For hours?" Lena nodded, still smiling. "It's called a marathon." Back at the embassy, Rena received a report. Word of the seminar had spread fast. One comment, taken out of context, now echoed through scientific networks. Humans run for pleasure, with no prey in sight. For many species in the coalition, especially those descended from prey animals, that idea was deeply unsettling. The next day, Rena met with Professor Miro Tan, an alien biologist who had compiled a file titled Human Anomalies, Behavioral Patterns and Evolutionary Traits. The document was long and careful, but its tone was clear. "You are not like us," he told her, "You say the right things. You extend friendship. But your instincts, they are shaped by a different world." Rena didn't deny it. "We come from a place that demanded resilience. We learned to stand when others would fall. That's how we survived." Professor Tan stared for a moment. "And now you're teaching others to stand with you." Later that evening, Lena met with Rena to review the week's developments. "We've had several invitations for human advisors on conflict resolution," Lena said, placing a digital folder on the table. "But also several private concerns about our tactics. Some fear we're manipulating them. Are we?" Rena asked calmly. "We're helping," Lena replied. "But we are choosing where to help and how." Rena sat back in her chair, thinking. "Then we need to shift the focus. No more pretending we're like everyone else. That illusion is cracking." "So what do we do?" Lena asked. Rena looked out the window as two small alien children passed by, laughing and pointing at the Earth flag flying outside the embassy. "We show them what we really are," she said. "Not just predators, not just warriors. We are something more complicated. We are a species that remembers struggle and uses that memory to keep peace." The predator's pause had ended. Now, the world was watching. Asterisk General Toma Reyes stood beneath the soft glow of the strategy chamber lights aboard the Earth flagship Horizon's Edge, his hands resting lightly on the edges of a star map that stretched across the glass table. Around him, the holographic icons of allied ships flickered gently, surrounded by glowing red marks enemy vessels approaching fast. The warning had come only hours earlier. A fleet of machines from beyond known space had entered Coalition territory. No signals, no communications, just cold, efficient destruction. 3 border colonies had gone silent. The Coalition was panicking. Earth, however, was already moving out, in orbit above the moon of Varanine. Commander Niran of the reptilian Zerati stood aboard his own ship, watching the data stream with a growing sense of awe. Earth's response had been immediate and organized. Within minutes of the emergency call, human fleets had deployed. While many Coalition members debated how to respond, Earth had acted. And more than that, they had arrived without asking for permission. Not out of arrogance, Niran thought, but something else. Something deeper. Protection. It was how humans operated. If something was part of their pack, they defended it without hesitation. Below the main deck of the Horizon's Edge, scientist Razia Noor walked swiftly through the medical bay, tablet in hand, reviewing psychological reports gathered from both allies and enemies in previous human conflicts. Her recent findings had sparked both praise and worry within the Coalition's Scientific Council. She had explained it simply. Humans do not just fight for survival. They fight for each other. Their instinct is not just to hunt, but to protect. The incoming enemy fleet, known only as the Silica, had no known culture, no emotion, and no clear objective beyond destruction. Their ships were silent, their movements calculated. The Coalition had never seen anything like them, and many feared. This would be the final test of Earth's intentions. Would humans stand with the others, or reveal their true nature as a threat? On the bridge, General Reyes issued quiet orders. Deploy resonance decoys. Disable targeting systems. Keep our full arsenal hidden unless absolutely necessary. The officers nodded. They didn't need to shout or rush. Human crews operated with a calm that unnerved some alien allies. They trained under pressure. They expected danger. It didn't rattle them. It focused them. The Coalition command ships watched from afar, broadcasting the unfolding events to the Central Council. Rehan Malek, now a senior advisor, stood in the observation room of the Coalition capital, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the display. Beside him, Counselor Belther remained silent. He had once feared humans, even warned against their growing influence. But now, as the enemy loomed large, it was Earth's fleet standing between the coalition and devastation. The battle began with no warning. The silica ships opened fire, beams of searing light tearing through asteroid fields and disabling outer probes. Coalition ships scattered, trying to regroup. But the human fleet held steady. Instead of forming a standard defense line, the Earth vessels split into uneven formations, some moving forward, others diving beneath sensor range. It was messy, unpredictable, and entirely deliberate. Within minutes, Earth's stealth drones slipped through gaps in the enemy's formation, unleashing electromagnetic pulses calibrated to disrupt machine logic systems. Razia's research had shown that while the silica were resistant to many forms of damage, their processors were vulnerable to certain frequencies. It wasn't brute force, it was precision. Then came the boarding units. Small shielded pods launched from hidden bays, latching onto the hulls of silica command ships. The human soldiers aboard didn't speak, didn't hesitate. They moved in silence, disabling core systems, rerouting power, and planting command. Overrides. While most Council forces would have tried to destroy the enemy, humans had a different goal: understand it, control it, and only destroy what they could not tame. Hours later, silence fell over the battlefield. Of the 51 silica ships that had entered the system, 22 were disabled, 13 had been captured, and the rest fled. Not a single Earth ship had been lost. And though some human soldiers were injured, none had fallen. In the days that followed, the coalition buzzed with new questions. They no longer asked whether Earth was dangerous. They knew the answer. The question had changed. Could danger, when guided by discipline and compassion, become the very thing that saved them? Razia spoke before the Scientific Council. We evolved to face fear, not flee from it. That instinct to survive, to adapt, to fight it, also allows us to protect. Not because we are soft, but because we choose to use strength to shield others. Councillor Belther addressed the council chamber. For the first time in months, we feared humans because they reminded us of things we had moved beyond: violence, chaos, hunger. But we failed to see what they had become. Not just survivors, guardians. Weeks later, on a new world being terraformed by Earth and its allies, a small alien child ran across red soil, laughing as she chased a human instructor through the dust. She wore a borrowed Earth defense jacket, far too big for her, the sleeves dragging behind her like a cape. "When I grow up," she said proudly, "I'll protect the stars like the humans do." Back aboard the Horizon's Edge, General Reyes stood quietly, watching a recording of the same child sent by one of the Earth crews on the surface. He smiled, a real one, full of quiet pride. Far away, in a galaxy that had once looked at humans with suspicion, a new story was taking shape. Not of conquerors, not of beasts in disguise, but of a species who had been shaped by hardship, who remembered the hunt but had chosen, instead, to guard the stars. And now, the coalition knew, humans could bite, but they only bit when the pack was threatened. And now, the pack was the galaxy.